Now we go on to question 4 of the question paper, which is circle geometry, also analytical geometry, which is we have a circle and also a straight line, which is a tangent. So they say in the diagram, the center or the circle centered at M, which is the coordinates are A and B, is drawn. Then T and R, which is R is 6 to 0, are the x-intercepts of the circle, as you can see from the diagram. A tangent drawn to the circle at K, which is that point K, 5 is to 7. That is where you find your tangent. And then the first question, it says M is a point that lies in the line y is equal to x plus 1. So question 4.1, which is question 4.1.1, they say write B in terms of A. So when you write B in terms of A, you're going to use that equation. They already told you that M lies on that line, y is equal to x plus 1, and you must write B in terms of A. You know that B is the y value for M, because M is A is to B. So we're going to substitute B in place of y, then x would be A plus 1. Then here is B in terms of A, as they've said. So B is equal to A plus 1. So the next question, which is 4.1.2, they say calculate the coordinates of M now. So if you can see from the diagram, I'm just going to make a mini sketch again. If you can see from the diagram, you can see that point M is there, and then you have K as well, and then you have R. So if you see K and R, they're just points on the circumference, right? So if I can write a curve there. So MK and MR are your radii or your radius. So to get the coordinates of M, which is 5 marks, you have to struggle a bit, then go to the answer. So we know that MR squared would be equal to MK squared. How do we do that? So this is how we're going to do it. So we're going to say 0, sorry, not 0, but A. Let me write that clean. So you're going to say A minus a 6 squared plus, and then you're going to say B minus a 0. And also you're going to say all squared. And then that will be equal to A again minus, we're using K now this time around, minus 5 all squared plus, then we're going to use B, then B, it's going to be a minus a 7 all squared. So yeah, if you remember on the top question, which is 4.1.1, you remember that B is equal to A plus 1. So where it's written B, you're going to remove that B and substitute A plus 1. So I'm just going to say here it's A minus 6 all squared plus, so this section will be A plus 1 all squared, so 0 won't do any effect. So then I'm going to say A minus 5, and then in place of B, so I'm going to say all squared. In place of B, I'm going to substitute A plus 1 again. So it's going to be A plus 1 minus a 7 squared, which is A plus 1 minus a 7 is going to be a minus 6 here. It's going to be a negative 6 here. So now we're going to use algebra to get A and B. but everything is in terms of a, so we're gonna get a first, then we get b. So this term, if I can write it neatly, so I'm just rewriting everything. So this term is going to be minus 6 as well. So to not struggle or to get confused, we know that this one, the a minus 6 all squared, will have to cancel the other a minus 6 all squared on the other side. So on this side, we're gonna have a squared plus 2a plus a1, and then on the other side where we have a minus 5, we're gonna have a squared minus, it's going to be a negative 10a plus a 25. So we are closer to getting our a value. So if we can use our algebra, the a squared and the a squared cancel, and also if you take this negative 10a to the other side, you're gonna have a 12a on this side, and then the 1 and the 25, if you take 1 on the other side, you're gonna have 24 on this side, and then you're gonna have 12a being equal to 24. Then you're gonna divide by 12, then a will be equal to a 2. So you are closer now. If you remember that b was equal or is equal to a plus 1, so b has to be a 3 if you substitute that 2. Therefore, the coordinates of m are 2 is to 3. That is how you would reach your answer. And then we move on to 4.2. So 4.2 says, I'm just going to scroll a bit. So if the coordinates of m are 2 is to 3, calculate the length of the radius. So meaning that even if you didn't get that question, you were still going to use 2 and 2 is to 3 to find 4.2 as your answer. So in 4.2, which is going to say 4.2.1, then they say calculate the radius. So it's going to be easy now. They say calculate the radius. We're just gonna use either rm or km to get the radius, because the radius is the distance between the distance from k to m, or also from r to m. But we might as well use the radius of that circle, right, which is and those 2 points, which is k and r. So the equation of the circle, let's see how many marks. So it's just 2 marks. So the equation of that circle is going to be x minus a all squared plus y minus b all squared is equal to an r squared. So we can use any point on that graph. So we already know that the radius, so it's going to be minus 2 all squared plus y minus 3 all squared is equal to an r squared. So here we can use any point. So I can use 6 is to 0, which is r, to get the radius. So I'm going to say 6 minus 2 squared plus, so in place of this one is going to be 0, so it's going to be a minus 3 all squared is equal to r squared. So here we're going to have 4 squared, which is going to be 16. Then we're going to have 9. And then 16 plus 9 is a 25. Therefore, your r has to be equal to 5 units, which is the distance of your radius. And then now we go on to 4.21. 4.22, which is the next one. Then 4.22 says calculate the length of TR, which is from the point T to point R, which is they both lie on the y-axis, so it's easy to get your points. So t belongs into your circle, so the coordinates of m are 2 and 3 all squared plus y minus 3 all squared is equal to a 25. So t is a x-intercept or an x-intercept, so its y value is 0. So here we're going to have x minus 2 all squared plus a 0 minus 3, that is equal to 25. So this will be x squared minus 4x plus 4. So this will be a 9 minus a 25, which is equal to 0. So that is simple algebra that we're going to use there. So x squared minus 4x, and then we have 4, we have 9, we have 25. So let's quickly do that addition and subtraction. So 4 plus a 9 minus a 25 is a negative 12. So we need factors of 12. So it's x here, it's x. So factors of 12 that give you a 4 has to be 6 and a 2. And then your signs, you have to say minus 6 and plus 2 to get a negative 4. Therefore, your x values are 6, which is already the x value of r, or x will be a negative 2. Then the coordinates of t would be negative 2 is to 0. Then the length of tr, since it's minus 2 up until a 6. So if you count by using your number line, so you're gonna have a minus 1 here, a 0, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's not into scale, but we just want to find the length of tr. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the length of tr has to be 8 units. That is how you would find the length of tr. And now let's go on to 4.3. Then in 4.3 they say determine the equation of the tangent at k. Write your answer in the form of y is equal to mx plus c, which is the equation of a straight line. So they want the tangent or the equation of the tangent that passes at k. So the simplest thing that we can do is to find the gradient first, then use the coordinates of k to get the equation of that tangent. So I am going to use, you can choose, I'm going to use the m coordinate or the m point and the k point just to get the, what you call this, a gradient. Then once I get that gradient, I know that the gradient of the radius and the gradient of the tangent, they are since they are perpendicular to one another, so the product of the gradients is minus 1. So I'm going to easily get the gradient of that tangent. Okay, so firstly, let's get the gradient of km. So we already know that k, the coordinates for k are, let's double check, 5 is to 7. So 5 is to 7, that's k. Then m is 2 is to 3. So let's work on that to get the gradient of km. So the gradient of km is going to be y2 minus y1 all over x1 x2 minus x1. So my k will be 1, then my m will be a 2. So it's 7 here. And then we're going to have a 3 minus a 7 all over. Then the x value there, it's 2 minus a 5. And then we're going to have negative 4 on top. Then at the bottom, we're going to have negative 3, which results into 4 over 3. So the gradient for the line KM, which is the radius, is 4 over 3. Now, we know that the tangent, the gradient of the tangent, when you multiply it with the gradient of your radius, you get a negative 1, since Km is perpendicular to the tangent. So the gradient of that tangent has to be, so a simpler way to get this, I usually say to my students that 4 over 3, right? So yeah, it's a positive gradient. So we know that the product of the gradient of the tangent times the gradient of the radius is minus 1. So you simply swap the value, like you make an inverse. Firstly, before you make an inverse, you make the opposite sign. So that gradient, its gradient is positive. So this one has to be a negative gradient. And then you swap the values, so you're going to have negative 3 over 4, or you make an inverse of it. So that's the gradient of that tangent. Therefore, we can find the equation of the tangent, which is the question that they posed or they asked. And then you're going to say, okay, I made a mistake there. So it's going to be x, it's m, then x minus x1. Now we can use the coordinates of k. So y minus a 7 is equal to our m, it's 3, it's negative 3 over 4 times x, and then our x value is a 5, so it's going to be minus 5. So y minus 7, so it's negative 3 over 4x, and then a negative and a negative has to be a positive, so it's going to be plus 15 over 4, and then you're gonna add 7 when you transpose. So minus 3 over 4x plus 7 to 15 over 4. Let's double check our answer. So when you add 7, you get 43. So it's plus 43 over 4. So that would be your equation for that tangent. And they said they want it in that form, which is y is equal to mx plus c. So our c value is 43 over 4. And now we go on to 4.3, which is the last one, which comes in series as well. So 4.4 goes as follows. So they gave us a statement to adhere to. So they say a horizontal line drawn as a tangent to the circle M at point N, which is the coordinates of N are C is to D, right? Where D has to be greater than, so it says, no, it says where D has to be less than, my mistake. So the value of D must be less than 0. When they say a value must be less than 0, they imply that the value must be a negative value. So D has to be a negative value. So they said a horizontal line drawn as a tangent to the circle M at point N. So that line is drawn directly to M. So that means that the coordinate, which is the c value, c has to be equal to the exact same value for m. They share the same x value, so you're going to have n being 2 is to a d value. So since n belongs to this circle that we are talking about, so we're just going to substitute the value of x of n to get the d value of this n coordinate. Then we must find it to be a negative value, since they told us that the d value has to be less than a 0. So our equation, if we remember, it's x minus 2 all squared plus y minus 3 all squared equals to 825. We are looking for that d value, which has to be a negative value. So we already have the x value, so here we're going to have 2 minus a 2, that will give us a 0. And then on this side we have y minus, or we can say we have d minus a 3 all squared is equal to 25. So this section gives us 0. So we're going to have d squared minus 6d plus 9 minus 825 is equal to a 0. And then we're going to use our algebra again. D squared has to be equal to d squared minus 6d, so 9 minus 825, I think it's going to be a 16. So 9 minus 825, yeah, it's a negative 16 equals to 0. So we must look for factors of 16 that gives us 6, or a negative 6. So we know that to get 16, it's 4 times 4, which is, that will give you an 8. And then if you say 8 times 2, yeah, you are close to 6. With 16, then you're gonna get your 6. So the value of d, so you're gonna say d and d. So this is simple algebra, they are both equal to 0. Then we know it's 8 and 2, so it's negative 16, meaning that your signs have to be the opposite of one another. Another one has to be positive and another one has to be a negative. So to get a negative 6, then we say minus 8 and then plus a 2. Then our d value has to be equal to an 8, or d has to be a negative 2. So on the statement they said d has to be less than a 0, meaning it has to be negative. Therefore the coordinates of n are to be 2 is to minus a 2. And now for our last one, which is 4.2, which is 3 marks. So 3 marks. So determine the equation of a circle at n passing through line T. So they want the equation of the circle passing through the line T in that format. So the center now, so the equation of the center now is said to be n. So we know that the center is n, so that will be our new center now. So our center is going to be 2 is to negative 2. Then they said it passes through T. So this is what you're gonna do. So your new radius has to be Tn. So Tn has to be your new radius. So your new center is n, then your new radius is Tn. So the best you can do, you're gonna say x minus 2 all squared plus y plus a 2, since y is a negative 2, all squared is equal to r squared. So if you remember that the coordinates of t we found that the coordinates of t, if you remember, where 2 is negative 2, sorry, is to 0. So to get the radius of this new circle that they are talking about now, so we have to find the length or the distance of Tn so that we get the radius of that point, which is we need to get r, or we might as well use the coordinates of t to get r, not r squared though. So we can substitute the coordinates of t on that entire equation. So we're gonna say we're gonna have minus 2 squared plus, so here we're gonna have a 0 plus 2 squared is equal to an r squared. So here we're going to have a 4, which is going to be a 16, and then here we're going to have a 2, which is going to be a 4. Then r squared will be equal to 20, so r squared is 20. Then r will be equal to the root of 20. So that will be your radius. Therefore, your new equation for that circle has to be x minus, so our center is n, if we remember it's minus 2 all squared plus y plus 2 all squared, then our radius which we just got is root 20. So but our r squared has to be 20. When you square a root, you know you're gonna get that number there. So that would be the new equation of that center, and that was or is question 4, which is 20 marks.